This first video we will be looking at the English language GCSE from AQA exam paper. This is taken from the November 2014 series. It is very similar to the paper that you will be sitting. Now you'll be allowed 2 hours 15 minutes. You will have an exam paper where you write your answers, and you will also have source documents in a separate booklet. In this instance we have 3 source documents. These sources can be anything, and they will be what you will be using to answer the first section, the reading section of the paper. They could be, for example, articles taken from an online newspaper, they could be letters, or they could be leaflets, as is in the case here. Now the exam paper shows you that the maximum mark for this paper is 80. It's divided equally among sections A and sections B. Section A deals with reading skills, section B deals with writing skills. Now, you're advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through all of the questions you have to answer and the 3 reading sources. It is a very good idea to read through the questions before you start answering them, and we'll go into that in a bit. It advises that you spend about an hour on section A and then about an hour on section B, giving yourself 15 minutes to prepare to read the sources. There is no strict set order that says you have to do section A before you do section B. However, you may find it useful as the exams themselves are contextualized. So in this instance, the exams are, all the questions, the reading and the writing questions have got something to do with forests, with nature, with conservation. So, shall we have a look at question 1? Right, question 1 is about comprehension. So the skill they're testing here is they want you to read a source and then answer some questions. You'll see the question itself shows you which source you need to read. In this case, source 1, the online article entitled "The Pond for Dog Oak was the oldest of the old, revered, loved and now mourned." Now question 1A asks you to list 4 things you learn about the Pond for Dog oak tree. The key words here is essentially the 4 things you learn. You should also get a clue from the way they lay out the question. You know that you're going to be given 4 marks for this as a maximum, and they've laid it out as a list. It is always a good idea to see how many marks you will be awarded for a question, because this will help you get the maximum amount of marks that you can. So question 1A is fairly simple. You are reading through the source and you're noting down things that you find out, things that you learn about this oak tree. Now, please do remember that these source documents, you can, when you're going through, you can underline keywords, key things that you may refer to later. Also, please remember that it's a very good idea to read the questions first. There are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, when you are reading, you will have an idea of what you are looking for. Now we've read the question, instead of reading the source completely on its own without context, we know that we're looking for things that we learn about the oak tree. We also know that we are looking for evidence of people's feelings towards the oak tree, because we've actually gone on to read question 1B as well. So, if you would like to give that a go, pause this video now and try answering question 1A. List 4 things you learn about the Pond for Dog oak tree. Okay, let's have a look at the mark scheme, and you can mark yourself as you go through this. So, for question 1A, this is what the examiner will have in front of them. Give 1 mark for each of the following possible answers up to a maximum of 4. Indicative content. This means what they would expect to see. So, for example, you could have found out that the tree was 30 feet away from Hugh Williams' farmhouse. You could have found out that the tree had fallen over in a storm. that it had overlooked the valley for approximately 1,200 years. It was the oldest in Wales. It had survived tempest, battle, fire, and threat of flood in the past, and it supplied wood to 40 or more generations. It also says, or any other valid responses that you are able to verify from checking source 1. This means the examiner can give you a bit of a leeway if you've identified something that you've learnt from that article that they haven't necessarily written down there. So, for example, you could have identified that the tree was a symbol for the local primary school. Again, this question is a fairly standard, fairly straightforward question. The main way that questions like this lose students' marks is that students don't often pay as much attention as they should to the first questions because they're not worth as many marks, because they want to get to the later on questions that they perceive as being more difficult. Even though it's a simple question, if you misread the question, if you make a mistake, you can lose marks on these, and these are marks that you really can't afford to throw away. So for the